Hey there, everybody. Welcome to our review of the Blacklist Season 9, Episode 15, titled Andrew Kinnison.
Might as well have been called Marvin Did It, because they really dropped every single hint that they possibly could to put together my theory that Marvin is behind everything. And now that they've kind of connected it a little more with this episode, now I actually feel very confident, not only that it's Marvin, but why he would be connected to this blackmailer actually trying to take down Cooper. Now it all is making a lot more sense.
This is an L, and this is the L that's gonna probably be on my forehead for this pandemic. Listen, though, L is also for lunatic, which I am probably going to be at some point during this video when I present a crazy, out-of-this-world theory that makes no sense, and I'm not even sure it makes sense to me. I'm just gonna kind of piece it together.
That's okay, we'll all work through this together here at the channel.
Okay, well, hit that subscribe button before we do go further, because guess what? We are closing in on 60,000, and that is thanks a great deal to everyone out there who has been with us talking about the Blacklist. This is us like all the other shows we cover. We appreciate you guys so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much to everyone who's helping us get to this goal. We're about maybe 600 people away now. So yeah, hit that subscribe button. Help us reach that milestone.
One more thing here. I mean, we're going to be speaking a lot about dodgy lawyers in this video. And if you love dodgy lawyers, Better Call Saul is starting up with season 6 very, very soon. We are going to be here talking all about that show with reviews, theories, all that good stuff that you get from us with the Blacklist. It is going to be there. So if you love Better Call Saul, we hope to be your destination all season long.
Okay, so let's set up a little bit of this episode.
Yes.
We finally Cooper had to come clean about Andrew, that he's had him seemingly for a couple of weeks. And I mean, it all sort of came to a head here where both what's going on with the tracker and Reddington and connected to Andrew now is all coming out, and Cooper's kind of like, oh man, I've been getting used, like on top of getting blackmailed. So everybody knows everything. Even Panabaker.
I really like how they presented all of this, because I think the show did a great job of addressing a lot of the questions we've all been kind of like pounding our head against the wall over, like Reddington saying to Cooper, why was I not your first call with all of this?
Legit.
Like, I understand getting into business with Reddington is a pretty, not great proposition all the time, but you know what else isn't a great idea? Doing what a blackmailer wants you to do. Like, that's very rarely ever good.
Yeah, and it seems that it's kind of set up Cooper that he's, God forbid, leaving the show, because he's admitted to everything. Panabaker, for some reason, is like, no, you're going to have to take the fall for it. You know, we looked the other way with Reddington. We looked the other way with Dembe. We even looked the other way with all the crazy stuff that Liz was doing. But you, no, nobody's looking the other way for you. I was just like, what? Why?
There's a reason for this. There's a very, very specific... Okay, are we going to go full lunatic theory right now? We might as well. We're here.
Go ahead.
All right. Okay, here's where I am with it. I am not going to deny that your Marvin Gerard theory is very much probably true after this episode. I think there's way, way too much evidence at this point. However, what if Panabaker and Marvin are actually working together?
Okay,
and
it's a lot crazier than I thought you were going to go.
This is why this is crazy, but hear me out, everybody.
Okay, what's the motive?
The motive here would be Marvin has got a good many connections, right? Like, he's a part of Reddington's criminal empire. He can do a lot of things, but he doesn't necessarily have the law enforcement angle, the government angle, the ability to cover things up on that side of things that Panabaker does. Panabaker clearly has a little bit of a beef with Cooper. Panabaker did have a burn notice out on Liz. Like, those elements are still there, but she may have needed somebody within Reddington's organization to really, get the down low on everything. And Marvin, as you have set up over time, has plenty of reasons to be very frustrated with Reddington or just upset about the idea of Liz taking over. So with their powers combined, Captain Planet style, these two have found a way to team up and cause all sorts of chaos. Thank you, everybody. You're welcome. I will now see myself out. That is the end of the... I'm still here.
Okay, I don't think that Panda Baker has anything to do with this after this episode. I'm sorry. I want to believe in your theory, and I did for a long time.
You're probably right.
But the way that she was reacting in this episode and how crappy of a liar Marvin is, I just don't think she's part of it, especially when we get to this point here where Reggie, the blackmailer, is getting picked up by the task force and brought in, and Marvin's like, even before that, like, this call went out to Reggie to warn him that, people are coming for you. And we saw this call also happen with Marvin and Reddington, where Reddington's like, listen, Cooper's in huge trouble. I'm going to put you on this. Everything with Andrew's going, sideways. And Marvin's all like, oh, and what did he say exactly? And, I'm just like, okay, Marvin, like, we all know what you're trying to get to. At this point, you're trying to clean up loose ends. So he's then saying, okay, I'll come down and I'll help you with your Cooper problem. But I got another problem I got to deal with first, and then I will come and help you as well with everything that's going on. Then all of a sudden, Reggie gets a call, and he's like throwing everything out, burning everything, taking his money, trying to run off. I'm like, okay, obviously it had to be Marvin that made this call. Hannah Baker did not make this call to Reggie to be like, hey, you're burned, get out.
It's at this point, it's either that it's Marvin, my craziness aside. It's either Marvin or the show really wants us to think that it's Marvin and they're just all setting us up, which if they're doing that, it's kind of mean at this point.
No, there's more, because it is very odd that we had Reggie with the task force and his lawyer found the post office. How? Yeah. How? Even Panda Baker was like, how? How do you know this place? Nobody knows about this place. How in the world would you ever figure out about this place, let alone that your client would be here? And he even dropped the name Van Dyke. It has to be somebody who knows about this place. And because Panda Baker just truly, honestly, unless she's winning an Oscar, like, she truly did not understand what was going on here. But then you had Marvin, who is winning no Oscars at all, who knew about this place, who knew Reggie was there, who knows other lawyers. All of a sudden, a lawyer shows up to help Reggie and get him out of there. And at first, he was just all like, oh, is that Reggie? I'm like, get out. Yeah. Get out. Nobody is believing this. How is Reddington believing this? Then we had this situation where Marvin's kind of like, oh, well, they're not really going to last that long out there. He's burned. His lawyer's burned. And then a magic motorcyclist drives by and kills them. I'm just like, okay, Marvin has set all this up. He is cleaning up loose ends. That is the connection. He is trying to dismantle the task force because they are looking into the tracker that he was part of. That's why this was happening to Cooper. He's trying to get rid of Cooper to get rid of the task force. He is covering it up.
All of it makes perfect sense. Like, there is no denying at this point that Marvin he's a smart enough guy to pull all of this off. He didn't like the idea of Liz potentially running the Empire. He also did not probably like what happened to him at the hands of Brimley, and I'm pretty sure he has never let that go. And I think on top of all this, and this is going to be probably one of the second most ridiculous thing I say in this video beyond what I said earlier, but Fisher Stevens is such an actor who is like in the know right now, who is a really big deal because of Succession and everything else. I kind of feel like the writers of the Blacklist are probably, sitting at home and being like, okay, we love Fisher Stevens. We want to ensure that we still have him on the show this season somehow. How can we promise him a really good, meaty, important storyline to make sure that he's there? And this feels like it. Like, this feels like he has somehow found a way to orchestrate a lot of this. I mean, I think beyond that, though, the big question is, of course, okay, how is Marvin getting someone to be in this position? How does Marvin have all of these resources? You know, how is someone like him, who comes across in some ways as not so much meek, but he's not charismatic in the way that Reddington is, like, how can he pull this off?
He's not charismatic, but he is not meek. He is a lawyer, and he is a pretty good lawyer. So he would be connected. And that has always sort of been what I think Marvin's motive is he just has said for the longest time, Liz was not the right person to run this empire. She was just gonna, her heart wasn't in it. She was gonna run it into the ground. There would be nothing left. And then on top of it, she sets up Marvin to go through everything with Brimley. He was never going to work for her. So unless he got rid of her, he was gonna be out of a job working for this empire, and he knew it. And I think he knew that the empire was important to Reddington as well. And he didn't want all of the people that have put all their time, money, resources, and loyalty to Reddington and this empire to go down the drain, because Liz was just not going to be able to step up and do this in a way that anyone was going to listen to or respect. It's like on Succession with Shiv. Nobody's respecting her. Nobody's paying attention to her because she's never actually really worked at the company before, and she doesn't have it behind her to run this. And that is the same with Liz. So it makes sense to me. He has the biggest motive where he maybe doesn't think he's betraying Reddington, like he knows he is because it's Liz, but he probably feels like, listen, I am doing this for the better of Reddington. He's not thinking clearly. I've been by his side all this time. I would never let anything happen to him, happen to his empire, happen to all the people that he employs.
That's what's important about this, is I don't think Marvin thinks of himself as a villain in any shape of the word. I think, if I had to guess, I think Marvin's internal monologue this season is just a lot of curse words we can't say on this channel in fear of demonetization, because he probably thought when Van Dyke killed Liz way back when, that was sort of the end of it. Yeah. That he washed his hands of it, moved forward. You know, Reddington went off and did his own thing. But I think the moment that Reddington decided, okay, I want to get back into the task force, I want to get back into the swing of things, like, the blackmailer didn't start showing up until after Reddington, you know, came back and signed on to all of this, right? So there's clearly a little bit of a chain reaction here going on.
Yeah, it feels like cleanup, and it feels like cleanup on what happened with Liz. I think legit, Marvin thought, okay, she's dead, Van Dyke is gone, that'll be the end of it. Reddington will just accept it for what it is, and that'll be that. And years later, I'm sure Marvin was like, okay, great, we're all moving on. There's nothing left to really deal with. But then you've got Reddington starts like digging deeper, and then the tracker comes out, and now the task force is involved in it. Now there's, you know, Marvin knows how well Reddington and the task force work together. If they want to find out who's behind the tracker and who's really behind this, they're going to find out. So this makes sense then that Marvin is like, oh noes, what am I going to do? I'm going to have to get rid of the head of the task force, because if I get rid of Cooper, it all falls apart.
This is where things are going to get very interesting the rest of this season, because let's just go ahead and assume that Marvin is 100% the person here, because
what sucks about this is that means that we're probably going to lose him. Like, it's a theory I've never wanted to be more wrong about.
It's a really delicate position, because like you have established and we've talked about here, you know, Marvin doesn't want to be against Reddington. This is not the same situation as Mr. Kaplan all the way back in season 4. And yet the moment that Reddington finds out that if Marvin's responsible, if he finds that information out, he's just going to kill Marvin right away. So what is Marvin going to do over these next several episodes if the truth starts to come out? Because really, the main motivation that Marvin has right now is, I don't want to die. And so everything he is doing right now, I think, is mostly with that motivation in mind.
Yeah, and I mean, Marvin does have resources. He is a lawyer, so he's
Yeah.
going to know other lawyers, which is why when that lawyer showed up, I'm like, oh, okay, it has to be Marvin here at this point. I'm sure Marvin has money. I mean, he's a lawyer, but he's also a criminal lawyer.
Yeah.
So he's on retainer and on call 24/7 here by Reddington. I don't think for a second that Reddington underpays him. I think he's got money, so he's got resources to be able to pull this off and hire somebody to get rid of the lawyer who's now burned, who's probably his friend,
Yep.
and Reggie. To just be like, okay, now here's the end of that line. So no more problems. It's time to stop looking into this.
Okay, so here's the thing with a lot of this stuff with Marvin is that I know that if they reveal that it's Marvin, it's going to be a situation where, we're going to sit here and be like, okay, well, Jess had this theory a long time ago and everything on the show sort of paid that off. I mean, is it satisfying if, she was able to predict it far in advance? And I think in this case, the answer is still yes, because it's not like it was that obvious right away. And they pieced it together over time. And with every single part of it collectively and eventually making sense, it's still a good reveal. It doesn't have to be so out of left field. It's satisfying sometimes to have things that are actually properly set up, which I know is something the Blacklist does not always do.
No, I think that it's very satisfying to finally have something that feels like a mystery of, who's behind this. And we're starting to get clues. And now we're getting quite a lot of clues in this episode that it's Marvin, that they're really circling that drain with him. That if we figure it out, which, I feel that I have, and I'm sure some of you feel like it's Marvin as well, that I'm okay to go on the rest of this ride knowing that it's him, because now every time I hear something or see something, I can connect it to that. So when we get to the big reveal, it's going to be really satisfying for me, because it's not only about, who is it? It's about the journey and does it make sense? Were the clues there? And not having it be so convoluted that it's just like, surprise, it's actually, Townsend back from the dead.
Oh boy.
And then it's just like, oh, come on. Like, where were the clues on this? Like, you gotta allow us to be able to be there, to pick up the clues, to figure it out. It needs to be there. It doesn't need to be so complicated that at the end we're like, what happened?
Okay, now let's get into a couple of things here with Panda Baker, because I'm not even bringing this up in the Panda Baker's responsible sort of deal, but I think the whole idea of Panda Baker making Cooper sort of take the fall for a lot of this, like in my mind, like the real part of my mind, not the part of my mind where I think Panda Baker and Marvin are working together, but I think this really boils down to the idea of she's someone who wants a fall person for everything. And I think she had Liz as a fall person with the burn notice and with all of that. And it was easy to sort of peg, okay, this is the person that's responsible. And with a lot of other incidents involving the task force, things could fall on Cooper or things could fall on Reddington. And if Cooper is the person who is misbehaving, like, let's just put it that way, we understand his motivation, then she's probably just like, okay, the only other person that's going to be blamed for Cooper is me, because I am the person who in the past was overseeing him. And I think she is acting out of self-preservation. I think there is also a part of her that thinks that, okay, everybody will figure this out. It's all going to be okay. But if it's not okay, I can't be the one responsible for it. I'm a senator now. I have way more skin in the game.
Well, I also think that Panda Baker just wants the task force gone. She wanted it gone 2 years ago, so she dismantled it. And it only came back together because Reddington basically pushed it on her that she had to get it back together, and she did. But now, if she can get rid of Cooper and he can take the fall for everything that he did do, and it's all legitimate, then it's like, this diamond has just fell into her lap to be like, well, no more Cooper. And if there's no more Cooper, already the task force is like, well, if there's no Cooper, there's no us. Perfect. Great. So this is finally off my plate. I don't have to worry about it anymore, and I can just move on.
there were a little bit of just some fun, nice little moments throughout all this as well. Like, I love the idea that through all of the anger about Cooper supposedly betraying the task force, so Ron was still calling Cooper Mr. Cooper. Through a lot of it, it was very endearing. I don't feel like the souls or the personalities of any of these people were kind of lost in it. And it was it's a refreshing thing, because I think so much of this episode, as good as it was really intense. There was no B story. There was no like side story where we went down some rabbit hole about robots or any other weird stuff. It had to be really focused.
Oh, this episode was a 10 out of 10 for me. Yeah. I really loved this episode. It was just straight Blacklist. We did, of course, have the Blacklister of the week, but it was completely connected into giving up the name Reggie and who was sort of behind the blackmailing and all that sort of stuff. It was really all about this. And it was the task force coming together, Cooper coming clean, Reddington's, involvement, everything with Marvin, Panabaker. Like, this was really like a fantastic episode.
And I think the hard part moving forward, Cooper is behind bars. How long do you leave Cooper behind bars? Because I don't believe for a second that Harry Lennox is leaving. I don't believe for a second.
He better not, or this would be a very different video.
No, I
you have
think
to
it'll
pick
be fine.
Me up off the floor.
No, I mean, it's going to be fine. Like, I think he will be okay. I think the question is just, how long are you going to put him in this state, and what's the cost going to be of him getting out of there? This could be something that lasts for 3 or 4 episodes. We all have to just sort of be prepared for that.
It might really have to be something where Panabaker has to pull some strings. She is a senator. She has the kind of pull that if she can sort of work around some of these things that he's done, that she will be able to get him out of this situation. If not, maybe Marvin. Probably not, because I'm sure that's where he wants him.
Marvin is going to be busy buying like a ticket to some tropical island somewhere where he will never be found ever again. That's where this is going for Marvin if he actually survives what's coming up.
No, he's not surviving. Like you said, Fisher Stevens is a really hot ticket right now.
Yeah.
His star is definitely rising. He's been in this business a hot minute. He's been around forever. But yeah, his star is really hot right now. So are they going to be able to really keep him on the blacklist? I don't know.
Well, let's just hope that the rest of this season delivers. Hopefully, this Marvin reveal will shape things up for everything to come. I think we both feel very confident at this point. It's Marvin. It's pretty hard not to after this episode.
There's a lot of evidence.
All right. Well, of course, hit that subscribe button. Help us get to 60,000. Follow us on Instagram as well, Matt and Jess TV. And we will see you here next time.